Imagine Allan Lichtman's 13 keys as a seesaw, where one statement can tip the balance. This seesaw is the U.S. elections. But who's this man? Lichtman, known for his highly accurate prediction for over 4 decades, uses his keys to the White House model for election predictions. He correctly predicted Trump's win in 2016 and Biden's win in 2020. For 2024, he predicts that Kamala Harris will defeat Donald Trump in the November 5 election. Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States. But how does his system of 13 keys works? Let's understand it. In his system, each key represents a condition that favors or opposes the re-election bid of the party holding the White House. If 6 or more keys are false, the incumbent party is predicted to lose. Then the challenger, in this case Trump, is predicted to win. Here are the keys favoring Harris to win the White House in 2024. First, the contest key. This key requires there is no serious contest for the incumbent party nomination. Initially, Biden was reluctant to step down from the race, but once he did, he has shown all his support and endorsement to Harris. Within the Democratic Party, there are no serious challengers to Harris's candidacy. Most Democrats believe Kamala Harris would make a good president. According to a new poll, about 60% of Democrats think she would do well in the top job. Next, the third-party key. This key is true if there is no significant third-party or independent campaign. This is another point in Harris's favor. In the race of 2024, Harris and Trump dominate, but third-party candidates like Jill Stein, Cornel West, Chase Oliver, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are also running for president. Stein and West appeal to progressive and socialist voters, while Oliver champions libertarian values and Kennedy Jr. has shifted support to Trump. These candidates might draw votes away from the major parties, but realistically, none of them are on the path to the White House. In fact, American presidential elections since 1860 have just been contests between Democrats and Republicans, as no third-party candidate has come close to winning. Next, the short-term economy key. This key says that the economy is not in recession during the election campaign. This statement is also true for Harris. The reason this key affects the outcome is because the current party is partly responsible for the economy today. Why would voters want to re-elect someone they believe is responsible for the recession? Harris, although not a re-election herself, represents the current party holding office. However, lucky for her, the economy is not in a recession. Despite recent concerns over a weakening job market and a sharp drop in stock prices, the U.S. economy shows resilience. The second quarter, GDP growth of 3% and strong consumer spending indicate strong economic health. Next, the long-term economy key. If the real per capita economic growth during the term equals or exceeds mean growth during the previous 2 terms, this is another point for the incumbent party. Lichtman has declared this as true, and Harris has won this key. The economic performance under Biden and Trump has several differences. Biden's GDP growth stands at 2.2%, slightly below Trump's 2.3%, but recent recovery has been strong. Inflation surged to 9.1% during Biden's early term, but has since dropped to 3%, while Trump's inflation was lower, but not historically minimal. Biden added 16 million jobs post-pandemic, compared to Trump's 6.7 million pre-pandemic, and unemployment fell to 3.4% under Biden, compared to Trump's 3.5%. Wage growth under Biden has struggled with inflation, and while stock markets hit record highs under both presidents, they fell during the pandemic before recovering. Next, the policy change key. This key turns true when the current administration makes a significant shift in government direction or introduces a major policy that impacts the nation's economy, welfare, or future outlook. Public opinion and ideological leanings don't matter. What counts is the scale of the change and its broad effects. This is another point in Harris's favor. So what major policies were introduced? Democrats succeeded in passing landmark legislation, including the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan and the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. The Biden administration also passed the CHIPS Act to bolster domestic semiconductor production and the Inflation Reduction Act to address climate change and healthcare costs. Next, the no social unrest key. This key is true if there is no sustained social unrest during the term. This indicates a stable social environment and successful leadership. This key is also true for Biden's term. While there was unrest at U.S. colleges over the war in Gaza and university investments in companies supporting Israel, Biden, who has largely remained silent on the protests, made it clear that while dissent is a cornerstone of democracy, it should not lead to disorder or violence. But it was nowhere near the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020. Trump's presidency saw countrywide protests after the George Floyd was killed. Next, the scandal key. This key checks for scandals. It is marked false if there's widespread, bipartisan concern about serious wrongdoing involving the president, like major corruption or an impeachment push. However, if the allegations seem like partisan attacks or aren't directly linked to the president, voters usually ignore them. In other words, a scandal needs broad, bipartisan disapproval and a clear connection to the president to really make an impact. While Biden's son, Hunter, has been under some controversy for illegal possession of a gun and lying about his drug use, Harris is not a subject of any major scandals. Next, the challenger charisma key. This key is true if the challenging party candidate is not charismatic or a national hero. Lichtman defines a charismatic candidate as someone with a magnetic personality that attracts a wide range of voters, not just their party's loyalists. Through his study of past presidential candidates, Lichtman identified several leaders with exceptional charisma, including James G. Blaine, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Barack Obama. These figures had the kind of broad appeal that significantly boosted their political success. In contrast, Lichtman argues that while Donald Trump has a strong and intense appeal, it primarily resonates with a specific segment of voters, that is the white supremacists, rather than reaching across party lines like Reagan did. Often Trump's statements come across as offensive, insensitive, and untrue. Next, the party mandate key. This key states that after the midterm elections, if the current party holds more seats in the House of Representatives than they did in last term's midterm elections, the party will win again. Let's look at some numbers. In the 2018 midterm elections, the Democrats held 235 seats in the House of Representatives. In 2022, however, Democrats only held 213 seats. Lichtman explains that midterm elections show how well the current party in power is doing and can signal broader national trends. If the incumbent party does badly and loses many House seats, it can weaken the president's ability to pass policies, which can make other factors unfavorable for the party. Since this statement is false, this is a point in Trump's favor. Next, the incumbency key. The incumbent party candidate is the sitting president. This one is pretty simple. Harris is not the sitting president. She's the sitting vice president. Why is this important? Lichtman says that an incumbent president running for re-election has several advantages. They can set the national agenda and get more media attention compared to challengers. During crises, the president often benefits from a boost in support. Lichtman also notes that strong candidates from the opposing party usually avoid running against an incumbent unless the president is seen as very weak. Since Biden has stepped down, the Democratic Party loses all these advantages. Next, incumbent charisma key. This key is true if the incumbent party candidate is charismatic or a national hero. Recent polls reveal that Americans think Harris is less charismatic than Donald Trump. Only 22% of voters find her more charismatic than Trump, who is favored by 49%. The other two keys are about foreign and military success. These can greatly impact an administration's fortunes, and according to Lichtman, the Biden administration faces a pivotal test. Despite being deeply involved in the ongoing Gaza conflict, described by Lichtman as a humanitarian disaster with no end in sight, the administration has not suffered a major failure in foreign or military affairs. Lichtman points out that if both foreign policy keys were to flip to negative, indicating failures, it would still leave Trump with only 5 negative keys. This would not be sufficient for him to reclaim the White House, suggesting that even a turbulent foreign policy landscape might not be enough to sway the election decisively. Do you think Lichtman's prediction will come true in November?